Well, welcome to the Metropolitan Fire Chiefs Association's Leadership Development Podcast series. And this podcast is for Metro Chiefs by Metro Chiefs, engaging in conversations about issues that are relevant to members of our association. This series, however, can be useful for current or aspiring fire chiefs in any size department in the United States or internationally. Today's topic is one that is super important to fire chiefs around the globe, and that is leading alongside labor. With us for the conversation about this topic is local president Eric Don and fire chief Aaron Lipsky, both from the Milwaukee Fire Department. Eric is the president of the Milwaukee Professional Firefighters Local 215 and has been with the Milwaukee Fire Department for 11 years. He's been involved in the union in multiple facets for the past 8 years, holding numerous positions on the executive board, and he's been the president for the past 3 years. Chief Lipsky has served the city of Milwaukee for over 25 years, joining the department in 1997, ironically, in the same class as your older brother, Daniel. He's a fourth-generation Milwaukee firefighter and resident. Chief Lipsky holds a bachelor's degree in communications, a master's degree in public administration, both of those coming from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Chief Lipsky served in every rank, was appointed a battalion chief in 2010, and covered operational battalions before being tasked with oversight. This sounds super fun, of the division's construction and maintenance division. Sorry, the construction and maintenance division. He was promoted to deputy chief and served as a citywide commander. In 2019, Aaron was promoted to assistant chief and was overseeing the support bureau, doing budget and finance, working with elected officials, the Fire and Police Commission, labor relations, and technical services dispatch, professional standards, as well as fleet and facilities. In late 2020, Chief Lipsky was appointed as the acting chief and was sworn in as the permanent chief in June of 21. So Eric and Aaron, it's fantastic to have you here with us. I did try and hit on all the highlights of your career, but please feel free to touch on any areas that are super important to you, that have shaped your leadership philosophy, anything that I may have missed.
Geez, thanks for having me, and thanks for having President Dawn on board too here. Boy, there's a ton of stuff I think that has shaped my leadership philosophy, and probably not all fit for public consumption, but we've certainly, I think it's universal in the fire service, probably universal in leadership and organizations the worldwide, is you learn both ways. You learn by watching folks and saying, I will never do that if I get there. And then you learn from the others who you can't figure out how are they making this look so darn easy? And how do they seem to just know the right way to shift and dodge around and make the thing all work at the end of the chaotic day? And then you arrive in these spots, and then I'll stop talking so Eric can talk too. You arrive in some of these spots and you realize there is no illusion to it. There is no magic trick. There is no just inherent, I just got this all figured out. You are spending much of your day negotiating with unknowns. And that, I think, is the distinction between successful leaders and leaders that struggle, is the ability to not have the answers, but still formulate a plan and take an action. And I think that speaks to the core of what firefighting and EMS is right now. Is it's just, we're being barraged with changes and unknowns. How are we able to function and move forward? That's what defines us.
I'll go with, when I was growing up, I grew up with a military father. He was in the Navy for 20 years and kind of instilled in me, shut up and listen, right? And when we come in the fire service, it's kind of the same concept. And I'd say even as a union leader, I kind of take that same grasp as I listen to the members and what they want and develop a plan on how we can accomplish it, if it's accomplishable at all. it's really not me or the chief. It's about the 700 people that work under us and how we can manage them and make this beneficial for everybody.
That's great feedback. I appreciate that. I hear that sort of servant heart in both of you, right? And a little bit of the piece of humility, which I love, Aaron, what you're talking about, which is it's okay to not have all the answers, and then it's okay to learn just as much from leaders that don't really exemplify who you want to be as it is to listen to people or watch people that we want to be like. Eric, I'm hearing from you the staying focused on the service to others, which I think is super important. So as I mentioned in the introduction, we're discussing this priority that many Metro chiefs and union leaders across the globe really, it's super important to them, and that's leading alongside labor. And so I'd like to hear from both of you. And Eric, I'll start with you. But what does that term, I'm sorry, mean to you?
So when I came into the union, I would say we had a toxic labor management relationship. And I've seen ups and downs. And it wasn't just with Chief Lipsky, it was his predecessor also. So it was really, when I got into this position, it was, let's develop the mission. And what is the chief's mission versus what is our mission? And at the end of the day, how do we accomplish it in a combined forum? Because we can get a lot more accomplished when we're working together versus if I'm, what do you call it? Trial by grievance, I think is when I got in here. I think there was 4 grievances out there that I had to settle, or governing by grievance, I think is what the chief called it at the time. But at the end of the day, like, grievances have their purpose, but the key is being open and honest about it. If I have a grievance now, I just bring it to the chief and we work through the issue. And or fortunately, we haven't had to file a grievance because we've been able to come together and come to resolutions in a combined labor management relationship, which has worked.
Yeah,
Aaron?
I credit Eric, I credit his executive board, and frankly, I credit the entire body, which Eric and I will jokingly in darker moments, if we are having an issue with a member, and I let's just bare our souls here. I used to say this and I used to mean it. I would look right at the union leadership and I'd say, well, you're never going to believe what your member did. and I would say that as the dig that it sounds like. And then, we'd start sorting out the issue. But there's something important about those intonations and those inferences and insinuations, isn't there? And so thankfully, we've gotten to a point where we're almost, anytime that something like that is said, it's said in jest, and it's Eric is not shy about saying the same thing back to me, because as you know, once you arrive in administration, you get the handbook with all the answers, right? and one should never be questioned, but one thing that has become paramount, and I think some of this is, they say, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention, or I might be butchering that, but we have had a wicked 4 or 5 years here. The whole world has, but us being here, it just feels super intense here. And we've come through a global pandemic. We've come through hyper politicized everything, which we're still in. We've come through civil unrest for a couple of summers. We've come through a major private ambulance provider in a very large, busy area of our city just shut down and left town. And there was no fallback plan. There's not like you don't go to the grocery store and get an ambulance company, right? And staffing shortages created by inability to run regular classes and do regular recruiting, testing, hiring, secondary to COVID. And that all just compounded and created this compression. And the only spot the compression could go at the end of the day is the same spot it always goes, onto the working units, the individual members who are taking record numbers of EMS and fire runs, busier than at any point in our department's history, doing that under about a 15-year history, maybe 20-year history of nothing except budgetary reductions, which translates into less fire companies, less personnel on those companies, right? And now all of that magnifies that compression on the individual member. So now they're taking more runs with less companies. And then we're telling them at the end of 24 hours, I know you thought you were going home, to celebrate your kid's birthday at home today, but you're being mandated for another 24-hour shift. And this also began happening in record numbers. I go through that whole diatribe to articulate that, and I say this with the greatest respect and admiration, that Eric, your guys carried that load. And I don't want to paint this as some Pollyanna, like everybody just was like, well, let's buck up and get through it. There was real conflict, and there was trials and tribulations that Eric and I absolutely either were going to figure out, or it was going to define us forever if we let it. And we had some real dust ups at the beginning, Eric, where you were coming off of observing broken administration, right? I was coming off of what appeared to me to just be a very vindictive labor relationship, and from our perspective, that is really how that looked. And so I can almost remember the moment it happened where we just decided, like, hold on, what's the most important thing? What is the most important thing? Universally, labor management, the fire department, the fire service, what is the most important thing? And I think we all can agree, and Eric and I certainly just broke it down. Like, we got to take care of our members. We have to take care of the membership, our membership. And we can disagree on how, and we will, and we do at times. But once you get like a principle, a vision, or a mission that kind of is like, yes, we all agree on that, that commonality can steer a whole lot of very positive activity. But it isn't just, you can't just say these things. It's not something you put on a banner on a wall and then just go about your daily business. What you have to do is you have to take some very uncomfortable steps that look a lot like extending risk, because you have to look at somebody else now who, by everything in your history, would tell you, and I came through the union, right? That is the one difference between labor and management. Typically, management has come through the union. The reverse is not true. That doesn't make us better or worse, but it does give us an additional perspective. Having come through where we are just pitched against each other, and that's the game. That's how we start. To do it the other way and go, listen, this is what I'll do. You've told me what you'll do. Okay, let's go do those things. And then we're watching each other, right? And we're always like, at that moment, kind of looking sideways at each other, like, are they really going to do what they said? And with Eric, he and his team, through some very difficult times, they did what they said they were going to do. And that makes the next extension of, I'm not sure if we should do this, but let's give it a go. And I'll tell you, it has spurred on innovation that I've never seen on this fire department right now.
That's great. I mean, I'm hearing you talk about really fundamentally relationships, right? And
Yes.
you're talking about listening, you're talking about authenticity. And I think you mentioned, putting yourself out there, that vulnerability, that's a little bit what's necessary if we're going to accomplish something together. There are fire chiefs out there, and Eric, you know this probably, through your partnerships with the international, right? There are fire chiefs out there that are not taking this approach, that they're not collaborative. They embrace the adversarial approach to labor and management relationships. What do you like? How does that damage it? Why do you believe that this is the right approach to leadership in the fire service? Because you could argue, well, if you're too gentle, right, the contract's going to be unaffordable, or you won't have accountability, right? You hear all this stuff, Eric. So why does this work? Why is it the right approach for U.S. Fire Service?
I mean, ultimately, like I said before, you can get a lot more accomplished for the members if you work together. And it's not that me and Chief get along on everything. We do butt heads, but at the end of the day, we shake hands and move on to the next thing. Ultimately, every chief's goal should be to take care of the department to the best of their ability, and within the department is the members.
Mm.
Let's never forget where we came from. Like Chief said, he ran through the ranks just like everybody else. He was in the union. There is a difference between moving up in the union ranks and being active in the union. Chief came to meetings. I don't think he was ever on the executive board or anything like that, because he had a different mission in his life, which is fine. Because at the end of the day, you have to believe in what the union stands for, and that's working conditions, benefits, and the health and well-being of the members. And ultimately, most chiefs, I believe, have that same core mission. Chief has a budget to uphold. So yes, we go for raises. We're a union. That's part of our job. But we also go for benefits. And okay, let's work together, get the numbers, and see what we can accomplish as a team, because he still has a mayor to answer to. I don't have to answer to the mayor, right? If I need something else, I'll go to the state level and work on politics, which the chief affords me the ability to do, to help with other things if we need other funding or any kind of financial support in the city level with new firehouses or anything like that.
Aaron, I like what Eric said there, right? So it's valuing the membership, right? How does that translate into service delivery to the community, right? Because you've got these two constituency groups that you're responsible to, that you have to answer to, right? So you've got the membership in the fire stations, you've got the community at large that you're sworn to protect, right? So how does that relationship and the way you collaborate with the local and their members, how does that translate into care for the customers and the community at large?
So I'll tell you what, operationally, with the kind of dismal backdrop that I described for you, our membership was burned out more than I think I've ever seen. And again, I always want to be very careful to not paint this picture that, oh, we're all figured out and we're just on the fast track to greatness. I mean, we are definitely on the upswing here, and we have more work to do, is what I mean to say. But our folks were extremely burned out, and in some cases falling off the cliff, like physical, mental, emotional exhaustion, compassion fatigue galore. And we all know what that looks like on the service delivery side. And what we began to see, to compare and contrast, what we began to see is an increase in kind of customer service related complaints coming into the department. We really, if we got, and we're a fairly large urban department, when I was first an assistant chief dealing with complaints, if we had 8 to 10 times a year that someone actually stopped to pick up a phone or send a letter to complain about something, that was a lot. We're the fire department, right? Who complains about the fire department? And we've seen a steady climb in that. And they're never complaining about, well, we think they should have gone defensive on this fire, or we thought maybe they should have tried another round of epi. It's never that stuff.
Mhm.
It's always about how they talked to me, how they treated me. They made me feel worse, right? And that to me is one of the biggest indicators of something's going wrong here. We've forgotten that we're here to take care of people, not act put out when they call for help, which can seep in very quickly. And so how does the better labor management relationship and all of the things that come from that, the productivity that can come from that, and the positive increase in atmosphere that can come from that, it translates very simply to a reduction in those complaints, which we are beginning to see that start to come back down. We had a running saying in our fire department, and I can tell you very assuredly that my father told me that his father told him this, and my grandfather told me that his father told him this, both when they came on the job. Something along the lines of, kid, everybody's going to walk around and say morale's never been worse. Morale's at an all-time low. And it's just a thing that they say. And it was true. Like that people would say that. So I heard that my whole career. Oh, morale's never been lower. There's always something to gripe about, right? And you know that as a collective in the fire service, we hone and sharpen and master the skill of the complaint almost as much as we practice forcible entry or, our EMS skills. It's inborn. And I'm not even saying that as if that's all bad. I'm just saying it is there. And you start to see a little bit of a decompression of the intensity and frequency and just the shoulder slump, grumpy face thing, right? Start to see that start to recede a little bit. And I think for the end user, the people we're here for, it has but only to improve the entire circumstance. Now, not just operationally, though. Under Eric's leadership, more than just about at any time, even when I was coming through the union and since, there's other benefits to the community too, because Eric has his union members out. They were out on Christmas Eve, riding around in fire trucks, delivering toys to families that had no idea they were coming, that on fire trucks, like just embedded with these community groups doing food drives and clothing drives. And I know I'm missing a whole bunch of stuff here, but those sorts of things, it's like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have your safety and security and all those things, you're not out there doing anything for anybody else. You're just trying to make it. I think the membership is starting to remember the oneness with the community, and you're just seeing a renewed energy of love for community, and then the community's love for the fire department. It's been a very, very wonderful thing to watch. So I think operationally, boom, interactions, again, back to the relationship and the interpersonal that you mentioned, Alec, but also the tactical and the skill and the reduction of error. That's a real thing too. Exhaustion does not help you with error prevention. So in all those ways, Alec, I think the community is really coming up diamonds from all of this.
Eric, thoughts on that? Like, fire chiefs who are skeptical about this, right? I mean, are you seeing that translating the care and concern that Aaron's talking about, translating then into service delivery at the station level?
That is always a concern. go back to the chief, right? He gives me the ability to utilize on-duty resources, and then we bring in off-duty resources. Like, we're the political arm of the department, I'd almost say. I mean, the chief has some political connections within the city and even the state, but we are the ones that do all the lobbying and stuff like that. With our charitable foundation, we're able to give back to the community, and our members are bought in to giving back to the community in a positive way. And the chief affords us the ability to work in conjunction, right? So it's Milwaukee Fire Department and Local 215 that are out in the community, like he was saying, whether it's giving turkeys away or coats away or toys for Christmas or candy for Halloween, like you name it, we're out there doing it off duty and on duty. And I think our members actually see that. And to go back to Chief's comments, we have over 28,000 overtimes in the last 3 years. We're on pace this year to probably eclipse any of the other 3 years previous. But the members right now, the morale is actually increasing because we've been able to accomplish stuff as a team. And when I say a team, labor management, that hasn't been done in forever. It's getting new firehouses reopened. It's working on contracts together. It's even policies that benefits the members that we've been able to accomplish because we sit down and just work it out. And it goes back to the community in a positive, because when a happy workforce produces good product, that's just the reality. And yeah, they're burnt out and tired, but on the community side, they see how it helps everybody.
That's great. So this isn't easy, right? Collaborating isn't easy. It takes more time to have those conversations and to do that up front. And you've probably got some roadblocks or speed bumps or, potholes or whatever. There are probably people within both of your teams or that you're accountable to that don't necessarily agree with this approach, right? From Eric, from your standpoint, if you're too close to the fire chief, right, you guys don't see you as a fighter. Aaron, your mayor or elected body may see the partnership with Eric on these things as weakening, right, your ability to hold firm on that. How do you address that? And I think there's two questions there. How do you keep the energy to keep going, right? And then how do you address that with your teams that they're the naysayers, the folks that are disruptors or, whatever, that are, maybe against what you're trying to accomplish here? Eric, I'll start with you. Yeah, that'd be great.
I would say 95% of our members truly enjoy the chief and the union working in conjunction. It is really 5% of loud people. When they come to meetings, because this happened 2 months ago, and I'll just say it, right? They're like, oh, you need to fight with the chief more. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? Punch him, choke him out? Or should I have a civil conversation and just work on the issue? Like, let's get it where we can and where it's manageable, where we don't have to take it to the Fire and Police Commission or make a media post when we're trying to accomplish a lot of good things. Because anything that goes to the media portrays negatively on the department and the union, let's be honest. So at the end of the day, it's, okay, let's sit down and have a cordial conversation. Yeah, we may not agree on every part of it, but how do you get it to what's mutually agreeable, right? When you negotiate a contract, when everyone leaves upset a little bit, that means you have a good contract. It's kind of the same relationship with the chief.
The art of compromise, right? I mean, I think some people lose sight of that, is that when we do committee work or we sit down for a negotiation, everybody's going to leave upset, right? Because everybody didn't get something that they wanted as part of that. Aaron, same question to you. Like, how do you address that? Do you ever get those pressures? If you feel comfortable talking about it, and
of course.
And how do you push through that? Like, where do you get the energy, and how do you address it?
I think it's central. It's central to what we're doing here. Is I 100% understand how it it could seem an uncomfortable thing to discuss, but we have to talk about those things. We have to like rip the veil back and go, this is the deal, because there are absolutely pressures. Did you ever hear the I'm going to be a little off track, Alex. So
That's all right. No worries.
So the 5 monkeys in the cage with the ladder and the banana at the top. All right. So just follow me on this, because this very, very accurately represents how a union might behave over time and how administration and or city government may behave over time. So they put 5 monkeys in a cage. There's a ladder. The top of the ladder is a banana. Every time one of the monkeys goes up to try to grab a banana, they spray the monkeys with icy cold water. So after a few times of this, anytime one of the monkeys tries to climb up the ladder, the other monkeys drag them down. They won't let them go up because they're tired of getting sprayed with the water. People running the experiment take one monkey out and replace it with a new monkey. That monkey going, hey, there's a banana up there, guys. What's up? Boom. He never makes it 3 rungs. They beat him up. No, you're not going up the ladder. They eventually replace all of the monkeys in the cage. And anytime a monkey goes near the ladder, it gets beat down. But they have no idea why they're beating the monkey up. They just learned that that's what you do when one of the monkeys goes near the ladder. And that's the whole problem, is over time. I can remember being at union meetings and, vote of no confidence and this, like, pitchforks and torches, and we're going to tear this thing down. And at the time, that felt very real. And it was real. We had some real problems. And I don't believe they were being adequately addressed by the leadership that was in place. And so, what an important and necessary thing to have something that gives voice to that. But if that voice is nothing but echoes of the past, and you just hate a thing because that's what you were taught to do, how counterproductive is that? Isn't something that we do in the fire service that's so pivotal to what we do is size up, right? You look around, you go, what's going on now? And then you look around in a few more minutes. Is it different, better, worse? And you make decisions based on that. But in these relationships, and a lot of relationships, we're using size ups that are 20 years old. We're not letting the environment inform us. And that's been a huge thing, is just like, hey, most definitely behind closed doors, I've been asked questions about my relationship, specifically with Eric and or the union as an entity. And every fire chief, I think, has different restrictions or constraints because we all work in similar formats, but they have nuanced differences. Fire and police commissions have different types of authorities over a fire chief. In some cases, mayors or city managers, right? Everybody has a different way they're answering up the stream. One thing that I had to decide very early on when I was first even approached about being the acting chief and then getting the job, I had to decide very early on that what I knew from my 20-some years of experience at that point, what I knew was what I knew. And what I believed was what I believed. And for the good of the firefighters and the paramedics and everybody trying to get all this work done, for the good of that, I can't abandon what I know for the sake of having a comfortable conversation with an elected official. Because I saw that happen for my whole career. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, trying to play nice in the sandbox with elected officials who, at the end of the day, don't ever forget, even as the fire chief, they work for you. They work for us. Trying to just navigate everything by, well, this is going to be awkward optics for this guy trying to run for this office, and this person here has a vendetta against the fire department, trying to negotiate all that. I decided I am representing the safety of my firefighters and their ability to go out and serve your constituents. If you want us to do that with half the complement we have today, tomorrow, fine. But you're holding that bag now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the stance I took from the word go. We have lost over a third of our department in the past 15 years. And to damaging effect, health effects, safety impacts, certainly response capabilities, we can't do it anymore. And I think it's a problem in the fire service, Alec, that transcends the labor management relationship. I think we have a lot of chiefs who arrive at that spot, and then they kind of like, going to fires and fighting fires. That's like, whatever, we do that a little bit, and we start to like self-loathe the thing that we do. And we become like the monkeys in the cage, right? We become that which we've observed. Instead of standing up and having a backbone and going, no, I will tell you what we need on the fire department. If you wanted to be the fire chief, see, you could have taken that track 20 years ago. But you didn't. You fumbled your way through paying taxes, and you screwed up your campaign finance law, and then you still got elected, but now you want to be the fire chief. I'm just not doing that.
That's great.
And
that's got to be encouraging, Eric. Outside, I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's got to be encouraging, though, to hear that, Eric, on your end, that you've got somebody who, and what I'm kind of taking away from that is like, don't abandon your values, and you recognize as a fire chief that you are at risk, right? You're an appointed official, and that some of these decisions that you're going to make have significant implications on the department. Yes. Have significant implications for your career. Yes. But if you're standing on those principles that you've talked about, it's got to be encouraging, Eric, for you and your membership.
Yeah. So our last chief came in, and I'll say with a goal, not a goal, probably he was directed that you are going to cut the fire department down to a certain level. Since I've been on the job, we lost 7 firehouses, probably 12 heavies total. And that's in 11 years. And it's nice to know you have a chief that has your back when it comes to the cuts. We were facing losing 2 rigs 2 years ago, and me and Chief Lipsky sat down and said, no, like, let's figure out a way that we can get the community to advocate for us. And we together created a path where we did community meetings in firehouses and engaged the community and educated them on what we do. Because let's be honest, we don't advocate for ourselves very well. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, not a lot of people know what the fire department actually does. We do more than fight fire. We do more than EMS, right? We're active in a dozen different facets through the community, right? Water pipe breaks. What do? We come and shut the water down and squeegee it out and save their property. Those are things most community members have no idea that we actually do. So it's really nice to have a chief on that we know is on our side when it comes to those kind of missions.
So talk to me about, like, in your time together, or in your time in, Eric on the e-board, Aaron within the executive staff of the department. What would you say is the biggest departmental achievement? So department-wide achievement that's been a result of this type of working together, this model that you're employing here?
I would actually say it's what we accomplished in 2023. We got a new mayor. He helped get us into the state level to talk a sales tax, which has been a conversation for 20 years. But our last mayor, polarized politician, this mayor was actually able to go and sit down. Well, with that came public safety. The whole sales tax would not have happened without public safety's involvement. So we now have it at the state level. We're going to gain 5 heavies and 3 med units because Chief Lipsky and myself sat down and came up with a game plan on how we were going to go after it. So we're going to almost go back to 2018 numbers because of the work we accomplished at the state because of a good labor management relationship.
Thoughts on that, Aaron? Same alignment?
Yeah, I tell you what, my mind went to a different spot. And no, but I mean, Eric's 1,000% correct. We've had other wins for the department, if you will, wins for the community safety and whatnot over the years that seemed pretty substantial at the time. This specific legislation was what in the world? Sorry about that. The legislation Eric's referencing was like environment changing, like it was global. What I was going to say is I think some of the best accomplishments they're in process right now. So they're not going to be realized maybe even in the time we have left on the job, Eric, right? Like, but they're happening right now. And I wish I could just hit the fast forward button just to see like, oh, that worked, right? Because, fire department, short attention span theater. We want to spray water on the thing and watch the fire go away. We want immediate feedback in that way. But at a very high strategic level, where Eric and I spend a lot of time now, you don't enjoy quick wins. And what we're seeing right now is a reinvestment in some very, very important things. So human relations and human resources efforts that, quite frankly, Eric has been pivotal in moving forward. And I don't want to discredit any of his predecessors because they did begin that work. Eric really put fuel on the fire, no pun intended. And we have had some sweeping changes in some of our department policies as a result of those conversations and just questions that were asked. And there's more coming. And that reinvestment, that's probably, I don't want to say it's as important as some of the things we've previously discussed, but it's right up there. People in our region, other fire chiefs, and I would imagine other labor leaders kind of look at Eric and I like, well, what are you guys doing? Like what? Wait, so you guys went to the event together? What? Wait, you're sitting with your wives at the event together? What? Like it really seems foreign. And for me, it looks weird the other way, where you got 2 grown adults giving each other the stink eye from opposite corners of the room like you're at the 5th grade dance. That looks weird to me. But I also have a memory, and I remember doing that. I remember being in that kind of that hardened, fixed position. So I think we're gonna see benefits of this because I tell you what's the one thing, everybody, you do worry about a legacy and like what stamp have I left? And I hope the stamp that we've left here with this is being able to look at the big picture and not get rattled by those little ripples, those tiny, they seem huge at the time, but against the backdrop of the larger mission, some of the things just aren't that important. And I'm not saying that's me prescribing that onto the membership. I'm saying bi-directional, like things that I may think are the most important thing in the world some days as the chief That's just not what's the most important thing to a member who's suffering whatever, a kid with an illness or an injury or some sort of financial strain or marital problems. My thing that's the most important doesn't align with that member's, and nor theirs with mine. I just think we can't have that memory loss as we work our way up into these positions. We should have the strategic vision, but you have to remember what it was like, you know, crawling those final few steps up onto the attic floor and the temperature changes by 1800 degrees. Like, you have to remember what that is, and that is hard and it's uncomfortable and it's dirty and it requires courage. It requires pushing past fear sometimes. Like, you can't forget those things because that's very real. And at the same time, how do I translate, my big ivory tower, lofty goals? How do I translate that to the folks who are out on the line? And I think the one thing you can't do, you can't say one thing and do another, because our BS meters are pegged to like 100% of the time collectively. And you have to do it, you have to do what you say you're going to do. I've stolen a phrase from the restaurant industry. The back of house has to match the front of house. It just has to. You can't talk about, oh, I care about the firefighters, and then do things that are careless. You just can't on either side of the equation, I guess.
So that brings me to my last question, which really is kind of forecasting. What do you think as a team your biggest challenges are, or your biggest challenge is moving forward as a collaborative leadership team? And then on the other side of that, what are you most excited about? What if you had to pick one thing? I know there's always a million things in front of us, right? All of us as in leadership positions, whether it's leading the local or leading the department. There's a million things out there. If you had to pick one, what are you most concerned about that you're going to have to work through together? And what are you most excited about?
Mine is, they're exactly the same, I'll be honest. And I'm going to say it's the fire service in general, is we're an extremely young department. We have 300 people that have 6 years or less, I want to say, roughly in that realm. The training levels that they have grown to learn and are now adapting to, as the chief and his team has worked in conjunction with our training committee and developing leadership classes, cornerstone classes, to educate the young members and make them better firefighters. So I'm extremely excited for 10 years from now what this department's going to look like, because of the work we're doing currently with training those young people. And it's like, even union wise, I look at who's coming to our union meetings, it's the young people. And I'm extremely excited what this department's going to look like in 10 years, because the positivity and the positive change, I believe, is just starting. And it's something that the chief has started creating, and it's going to be a good thing.
Aaron, thoughts on that?
I think we've had some really monumental, important wins, and there's more coming. But I think much like, this is going to be a really bad comparison, but much like, the Rolling Stones can only reinvent themselves so many times before they're just a bunch of old guys on stage playing their greatest hits from 30 years ago, right? So you already can see that my ability to make a comparison is horrible, except for the old guy part, right? So we have, like Eric hit on it, with the youth of the fire service and our fire department specifically. We have to get over ourselves about how, like, well, but I know this and I learned this and that. Like, keep the important stuff, jettison the the static and the nonsense and start embracing some of the things that the young folks are telling us, whether they're verbalizing it or just by demonstrating it to us. What we have to hand this thing over. He has to hand his presidency over at some point. I'm not staying here forever, right? And right now, what did you just say?
11 more years.
What?
When I retire, you retire.
We'll talk. But I think one of the greatest challenges is transferring the institutional knowledge that the young folks who have not come through these different experiences transfer the important stuff so we can help them avoid the pitfalls without prescribing for them in ironclad terms what they should do 15 years from now and try to pretend that what we're saying means anything, because we'll have no idea what the environment is in 15 years, and that'll be their job. I interact sometimes with folks who were chiefs or assistant chiefs or deputy chiefs in the fire department long ago, retired 20, 30 years ago. And you see a little bit of what I'm talking about with that. Sometimes good, sometimes like meh. But sometimes they'll say, rightly, we would have had no idea in our day what to do next with some of the stuff you folks are, like the pace and the frequency and the intensity of these big, huge, all hands on deck things we keep absorbing. Like we would have never been able to do that. Quick example is we had fire companies back in the day that, everybody tracks who's the busiest, who has the most runs. And back in the day, there was, I'm going to make a number up, but something around 3,000 or 3,500 runs. That was a busy engine and the busiest. And that's like an average engine for us. And the highs, we're blowing past 5,000 runs a year. And not just with like one or two unique companies. We have companies just rocking. And so to talk to an old timer and have an old timer look and go, hey, don't believe the hype, because what's the hype? A lot of old timers are like, you kids don't understand. Back in the day, all the fires were hotter and, we put it out with our sweat if we had to, it just like all those things that you're told your whole career. But to talk with an old timer and have them look and go, you folks are really doing it. You're doing it. And then there's the other kind, right? Well, how come you don't do this and how come you don't do that? And I'm like, well, because it's not 1954. And with all the respect and the deference to your time on the job and the difficult things you did, you wouldn't even recognize this place right now, other than we still have red trucks and we still go to fires and we still go to emergencies. The world has changed and we have tried our best to keep pace with it, or to maybe in some cases stay a step ahead of it. We're doing our best. Everybody's doing their best. I had a talk with a huge retirees group and I said, when you walk up to a firefighter today and you're all irritated about because they're wearing shorts and you don't think it looks professional, just think for a second how much you sound like when you started listening to Elvis back in the day and your parents were at your bedroom door barking at you about what is this nonsense you're listening to. Like it's the exact same thing. It's 100 degrees out. They're wearing shorts. Grow up. They're not going to wear the shorts into the fire. Don't worry, right? So I think it's going to be a challenge for me because I'm like an all-in kind of guy, and I know Eric is too. It's going to be a challenge to let go, and and that'll be an adjustment for me, I guess, in the run up to that moment in time is like, okay, I got to let go. But if I'm serious about what I just said, we have to be teaching the folks that are going to fill our spots and the spots below theirs and the spots below. We have to teach them, give them the tools to navigate all the changing information and changing conditions. And I think we're doing a good job at that. At the state level, Eric's very involved with at that level too. They've started doing something that, quite frankly, I think management should have been doing a long time ago, and that's pulling labor and management together at a conference, statewide. Is it once it's once a year, right, Eric?
Once a year.
And this is like just an incredible experience. And I would track some of our positive changes back to us getting more involved as our specific department administration and going to that conference. You're alongside your labor leader, and you're looking across, and you start to realize, we're not as bad off as we thought we were. Or, did you hear what they're doing over? Like, let's go plagiarize that. That seems like that's working. And we got to teach them how to do that. And I think we're doing okay, but that's a self-assessment. It's always probably a little high on the marks, but I think we're doing okay with that. So I'm excited about it. I don't think there's, knock on wood, I don't think there's too much that, after what we've been through the past years, I don't think there's too much that we can't figure out together if we keep that mission in mind.
It's awesome. Well, on behalf of anybody that might listen to this, I really appreciate the authenticity, the vulnerability, the information. As I'm listening to you, I'm taking notes, and I'm hearing things about relationships. I'm hearing things about, being a good listener, like a legitimate listener, not listening with the intent to respond, being human-centered, valuing each other, take care of the department. The members are the department, Eric. Don't forget where you came from. Don't abandon your values. Walking the talk. I think you mentioned that, Aaron. You can't do one thing, say one thing and do another. And then really towards the end, touching on the institutionalization, right? Handing it over to the next generation. But hopefully the legacy that you're leaving, both of you are leaving is a legacy of collaboration, a legacy of cooperation, in the interest of caring for the members and caring for the communities. I think this was just super valuable conversation. I know it was for me. So if nobody else listens to this, I appreciate both of you, and I appreciate you putting yourselves out there. So it was amazing to spend time with you. And so just to kind of close out, I'd just like to thank those who will take the time to listen to this Metro Chiefs Leadership Development Podcast. And again, it's created by Metro Chiefs for Metro Chiefs. If you enjoyed this session, please share it with others. And if you have ideas for topics that we should cover in future podcasts, please shoot us an email and we'll get after it. So until next time, thanks for listening, and be safe out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.